Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Happy Monday!
Hi, peeps!
And it's like a holiday Monday for many of our listeners. So,
yes,
yay! But we hope you're still listening.
Yeah.
You know, holidays, maybe you're listening the next day. Whatever. We just hope you're still listening.
There's no requirement they had to listen on the actual day that it comes out. So
correct.
Got the whole week.
Yes. So we hope that you're there someday this week because we're going to talk about something that we referred to in the last episode, but we have to do a preface. You know, we have to do, you know, when like you go to write a book and you think, oh, before they get into the plot of this book, I have to write some background information. And that's how Alison and I feel about this episode, right?
Yeah.
In the last episode of the podcast, we mentioned project-based learning approaches. We said, oh, maybe we'll do another episode or some episode about that coming up. But we realized we can't do that until we define one word for you all. And it's a word that so many people ask me to define and redefine when I do professional development, and a word that we get a lot of emails about. We realized that before digging more into project-based learning, which I know a lot of our listeners would like to do, because more and more of our listeners are using curriculums like the Creative Curriculum, High Scope, they're in Reggio Emilia systems, and these systems are basically project-based learning approaches. So before we dig into that, here's the word. Ready? We have to define this word: creativity. I can't tell you how many people in a professional development session will ask me to repeat my definition of creativity and detail that a little more. And I think that that's such a statement about the generations that we come from, that we can't even define creativity properly.
I feel like that's really, really sad that there's a large group of adults that can't define this. And that just tells you how our education was. And we want to provide more for the children that we care for.
Yeah. Right? I mean, obviously, if when I describe creativity, people are sort of like, wait, what? It doesn't include this or it doesn't include that. Then we weren't really taught to be creative. So is it any wonder that we don't quite understand how to let children do that? Because we may not have been given the space to do it. I remember being a young child freely finger painting in school, maybe kindergarten. Maybe that's my first memory of that. That's when kindergartens used to be more like pre-K classes, of course. But I remember finger painting.
I don't even remember that. That's sad, isn't it?
So creativity, folks, let's define it. You can be creative in a lot of different ways. You can be creative like the visual arts, drawing, painting, creating sculptures. You can be creative in the dramatic arts. Like in your dramatic play area in a preschool classroom, they're very creative over there. If we would just let them make decisions. Music and movement is one of the creative arts, which means children should be creating sound and music, not just singing our lyrics with us, which is fine, by the way.
Fine too.
But sing with them and teach them songs, but they also need to have time to create using sound. And rhythm and movement. So music and movement is another one. And
go on.
I was just going to say, here's creativity comes entirely from the brain of the person executing it. So if a child is being creative, the idea was theirs. They are the only ones who know what type of product they're trying to create. The idea does not come from the adults. You have not given them any notion, idea, or direction as to what to do. They just pick up the paper or the dramatic play items or the musical items, and they create.
And they go. Yeah.
From nothing.
Yeah. From their own head, from their ideas, their concepts, with no one inputting anything on top of it. Like, oh, you need to make a song. No, you can make whatever you want. Like there is no limits here.
Right.
No limits.
I'm gratified that before the pandemic, when visiting schools, I was seeing more creative art in classrooms. I was seeing more paint blobs and scribbles and finger paintings that you could tell the children had no direction for. I was seeing more of that sort of thing than maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, where it was all crafts on the wall.
And they all look the same, and they're like cookie cutter kind of project things that all look the same. And if you don't put the eye in the right spot, those kind of projects, I guess there's less of that going on.
I'll tell you what, though.
Right?
I'll tell you what, though, even if they put the eye in the right spot, it's still not art. It's not creative
art,
because they've been told what to make. And I don't care how they decorate it. Once we say to them, and this is the example I always use when doing professional development. So if you've done professional development with me, you've heard this before. If you tell the children, let's make birds, I'm going to give you all these materials and you make the birds however you want. That's not their
art.
Creativity. Sorry, because you said bird. When children are being truly creative, they make all the decisions, which refines their critical thinking skills, their process skills, not only their like fine motor and following direction, much deeper, more executive functioning skills they're practicing when they have to look at something that's blank or not done yet or not created yet and figure out what to do to create something.
Yeah. Well, I always feel like I would put out all the materials. Here's all the materials. Do what you want with it, right? But sometimes I feel that teachers are like, but I want them to glue it all on the paper. And I feel like once you say glue it on the paper, that takes away some creativity because now they're thinking in this box of, I got to glue it on the paper, whereas I've had kids take things and like stack them and do 3-dimensional things that I would have never thought of, that wasn't what I thought was going to happen when I put these materials out. But I just let them do it because it's their creation. I never said, like, I feel like once you put those parameters on it too, you're making them lose creativity. Because here's a child who might say, I want to stack these or do whatever I want with these. I want to make a sculpture instead of gluing. I feel like once you put any parameters on it, that's when the creativity goes away.
One of the beautiful things about not being given that sort of direction or being able to just create, the definition of creation, and I looked it up, it's to bring something into existence. Their ability to bring something they are thinking about into existence, there's no right or wrong answer to that.
Yeah.
Everyone can succeed.
Yeah. And that's what we want to do. We want to build their self-confidence up so that they are succeeding at things, that they feel like their mistakes or their, options are not wrong, that their choices are not wrong. And that's what creativity is. There is no wrong in art. There is no wrong in your creation. You make whatever you want. There's no wrong answer here. There's no mistakes being made. It's just be,
The fact that you just said there's no wrong answer here. So I have to tell you, I'm going to share this with everybody. And this is how in the box we were put as students, because it affects you your whole life, right? I'm working on a project right now. A pretty significant project being done in New Jersey. And I'm the subject matter expert for that project, which means I'm the one who knows the early childhood stuff, and the people who then take that and build things off it, they don't know early childhood.
Yeah.
I had to do a part of this project recently, and the people who were working with me could tell that I was a little hesitant and they said to me, there's no right answer, Cindy. You're the expert. Like, we're not looking for a right answer. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Yeah.
do is going to be golden.
Yeah.
And that's because I was creating this thing out of nothing but my own knowledge. And that's what we want children to do. So why at my age, after the experiences of my lifetime, am I so uncomfortable with that? Because I did not practice it as a young child.
Right. There you go. Right. But how sad is that we as adults are now like given this, like Cindy was given this huge project where they're like, you're the expert. And she's still like, wait a minute, what? I don't know how to do that because we don't know how to be creative half the time. Like we weren't taught that.
Right. And when they say like, when they say to me, somebody like me, you're the expert, you're the only one who knows what's in your head. Just put it out there and it's going to be great. Shouldn't we be doing that with kids then? Looking at them and saying, you're the expert in what you want to make.
Yeah.
What materials do you need? How can I help you to make what's in your head?
Yeah.
And then let's say they go to make it. I've had kids get very frustrated with their own creations. They're picturing something in their head and it doesn't come out the way they envisioned it.
Right.
Happens to me when I go to draw. I'm not good at drawing.
This happens to adults who are in the arts, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we can teach them a really important life lesson when that happens. It's okay. You can create again.
Yeah.
You can try again.
You may have learned something by it going this way and it now turning out your way in what you do need that you may not have thought of before. So it turns into this problem solving thing. Like, I want it to be this way and I can't get it that way. How can I think of a way to get it to look like what I envision in my head? So there's like these skills that you're mastering while you're doing this. It's not just like getting frustrated and be like, oh, it's not going to work. It's like, no, I'm frustrated. I want to build a tower out of these things and I'm going to figure out how to do that. So there's thought processes going on. It's not just here, go create and do whatever. It's like, there's a lot of thinking going on.
And I'm going to submit that when we allow children to bring things into existence from their own thoughts, it helps their behavior.
Yes.
Because they now have a way to express themselves other than words, which are hard for them at very young ages.
Yeah.
So we're actually giving them a great gift. And in classes where they allow children to be truly, truly creative every day in many ways, they learn more about the children. The children are more able to express how they're feeling so that we can help them learn self-regulation for their feelings and behavior. We get a glimpse into their world. I've had children draw some amazing things when they were left on their own. I remember one student drew, they were just sitting at a table drawing whatever they wanted. And one student drew a house. So, you end up with multiple kids drawing a house then. But this one student drew a house and there were these boxes on the house and there were people in each box. And I said something like, tell me about that, because I never assume what they're drawing. It could have been like a workplace for all I know that they visited with their parents. So I said, tell me about that. He said, this is my house. And he points to what I sense were windows, right? And he says, this is my room. This is my sister's room. This is mommy's room. And this is daddy's room. And I was like, oh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Already. But, I try to assume nothing. And maybe he meant daddy's office in the house. Or, maybe they have some sort of arrangement that's frankly none of my business. But it was an insight to how he sees his home and his family. I've had kids tell me other things too when they're drawing.
I've had kids work through very traumatic events through their creations, like bad stuff happens sometimes in the world. I mean, like 9/11, I remember children were building things and like crashing planes into them. And as an adult, you're like, oh my God, this is terrifying. But at the same time, it was the way that they were processing this event that they've been hearing about, so, and they need to go through that process in order to understand it in their own terms. So drawing things, there's a reason why child psychiatrists and psychologists use drawing as a way to get kids to talk. And it's because so much can be expressed through drawing where they might not have the words yet to express that, but they can draw it, they can act it out.
Spending time this way is so much more valuable to the children than any craft you're thinking of doing. And by the way, as we've said in past episodes, but will repeat, because it bears repeating, and it's important to repeat it. Crafts are not evidence of true learning and any kind of depth of knowledge, folks. They look like something to adults, so adults assume that they are, but no. I have a colleague, I'm going to plug her now, Lisa Murphy, the ooey gooey lady, who says things like, if you want to teach children about fish, then they need to see real fish.
Yeah.
And we have to stop using crafts as a receipt for a child's day with you. It's like a receipt. And when I say this to people, and I give Lisa Murphy full credit for having said this first, she just phrased it so perfectly. When we do that and we hand over craft, like, here's a receipt for what we learned today. Here it is. Here's the visual evidence. That's not evidence that the child has learned any kind of depth of information.
Right.
And how much time did you spend on that where you could have been doing science experiments and exploring and doing hands-on activities and observing real fish?
Yeah.
Or, there's just so many reasons why we need to educate families about the fact that we have a certain number of hours with their very young children during this point in their lives when they can soak in the most information and really lay the foundation for later, deeper thinking skills and executive functioning skills. I've got just so much time. So do you want me to spend that time creating penguins for you out of paper? Or do you want me to spend that time doing explorations and experiments and having conversations with your children that will enable them to practice their cognitive and thinking skills? So you tell me how you want me to spend the time. And when I have literally said this to families, they just sit there looking at me in the room. And I've had families respond to that with, but the crafts are kind of cute. My response to that is this, always, you do it at home. We don't have time for that in early childhood education.
Yeah. I have to say, if you are a teacher and you're really concerned that your parents are going to absolutely hate that they are not bringing anything home, I am a teacher that rarely sends things home because I don't really spend time on that kind of stuff. What I do spend time on is these experiences that I give them that they can't take home, right? So they might if we're learning about butterflies, I bring in real caterpillars and they watch the whole process, the whole metamorphosis of it. Can they bring that home? No.
You can send pictures home.
I send photos home every Friday through an email. And that's how I show these parents, this is what we are learning about. This is what your child did this week. And some of the photos I send home are not even like of the butterflies or the fish or the plants that we grow. It's like, here he is on the playground. This is what he did this week. He mastered the slide. You know what I mean? Because those things matter too. So if you're a teacher that's worried about but they're not going to get a craft sent home every day, they're going to think we're doing nothing. My parents were thrilled, absolutely excited when I would send home every Friday these photos with a little blurb of here's what we did this week. This was the week in our class. And that's how they got it. They didn't need a paper butterfly sent home to prove that little Johnny learned about butterflies this week. That didn't teach him anything. What taught him is watching that caterpillar turn into different things over time. And then we released it. That taught him something.
And when you send that blurb home, folks, tell them the objectives, goals, skills that children are learning by doing this. Just don't say we observed the caterpillars today. You have to say, we observed the caterpillars today. That's part of learning about biology and earth science, whatever it is. Also, when we're observing the butterflies, we also get to practice our observational skills, our attention to task.
Yeah,
right?
and
We
career
were
skills.
interacting with our
Yeah.
peers and developing
Yeah.
relationships with each other as we shared our observations. Put it in the grown-up words. I have a lot of teachers who send home pictures of things like graphs and charts and tallying that the very young children did in response to questions. And they'll send home pictures of these things and say, today we were doing and I'm just going to pick the creative curriculum closed study as an example, because it's an example that comes to mind. We were doing the creative curriculum's closed study, and the children asked all of the adults in the building if they prefer long sleeve or short sleeve shirts. They then tallied that information by doing this, and they sent home a picture of a child's tally or the children tallying. And they said, by doing this information, we were learning math concepts of counting, addition. Like they were like, here's what we learned. We learned about organization of data. We learned about math. But when you put it in those big grown-up words, people go, oh, wow. Right? Those are like skills that they're going to need to know for elementary school or for the years to come.
Yeah.
Folks, I can't ask you enough to give it a try and to explain to families. We are going to share with you what the children are learning, and we're going to share with you the goals and objectives and skills that these children are practicing as they do with us. But again, parents, how do you want me to spend my time? Do you want me to spend my time on these objectives and these thinking skills and these subject areas? Or do you want me to spend my time creating that penguin? You tell me, because I can't do both in the hours that we have your child's attention. Right? Can't do both. If you are curious about what evidence of learning looks like in a system where we're not handing people crafts as a receipt for the day, or you're wondering what displays look like of entirely creative art, go to howpreschoolteachersdoit.com, send it in the contact form what you would like to see, and I would be happy to share photos with you that I have. Next time on the podcast, now I feel like we can talk a little more about the project approach, dig a little deeper into that than we have in the past. And the sorts of conversations you need to have with children as they're exploring meaningful topics. Topics meaningful to them. Again, the focus is always on the children and the best use of our time with those children. So how we do that, the sort of conversations we have, and how we determine even what to do with the children in a project-based learning approach. And again, how we show evidence of what the children are learning. Maybe what I'll do, Alison, if you remind me, is I'll have a couple of things ready to screen share on YouTube to show people.
All right, I'm ready.
So tune in next time. And I'll have some things ready to show if you watch us on YouTube. If not, you can imagine. I don't know. You can use your.
Or they can listen, and then later on when they have a chance, go over to the YouTube, or we can try to figure out how to put that on the website.
Yeah, we can.
We could do that.
We can.
So we'll figure it out for my folks that like to listen.
Most definitely. Most definitely. We certainly hope you've had a lovely weekend.
Yeah.
Where we are, when we're recording right now, we're in the middle of a week with extraordinary heat.
Oh, yeah. You're lucky my hair is down right now. It's been so hot.
It's just
really bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
It's quite a thing.
Yeah.
But I think that may be breaking. And by the time this weekend has occurred, we'll be a little cooler. So I hope everybody had a good time.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we will catch you next time on the podcast, folks.
Bye, peeps.
Bye, everybody.